In my notes that I sent to the auditor about when I was kidnapped, I said that there was a current that said we should have tripled it. I didn't quite know what that meant. Now, tripling means different things, especially when it comes to securities law, when it comes to restitution. Right now, it says right here in this article on Yahoo News about Australia may prosecute soldiers over Afghanistan war crimes. It says right here. Last week, it was revealed the inquiry had investigated 55 incidents between 2005 and 2016 and heard evidence from 336 witnesses. That's a triple on a 112. Why would a 112 matter? Anybody contact the White House? Anybody know when they intend to release this report? Is it on Monday when all of those stocks post for Citigroup? Is somebody going to triple their last quarterly earnings from Citigroup on Monday using allegations of war crimes in Afghanistan? Really? Okay. Because this is dated for 2 days after what would be 11 months after a Washington Post report in the United States where a whole bunch of big name people in the American defense establishment just had no idea what was going on in Afghanistan. We didn't know what was going on. We didn't know what the priorities were. You got all kinds of people disavowing their understanding of any sort of strategy. All these things don't make sense. It's not true. Afghanistan was a huge capital outlay when it came to leveraging mismanagement. And all of the graft and all of the things that seem inexplicable make sense when it comes to the manners in which military fiscal law and policy has been disabused, especially and in connection with veterans or alleged veterans in the United States that are abusing their veterans benefits and their retirement benefits for the gamification of the country that is basically bankrupting the world, right? Nobody wanted to deal with this up until now. Nobody wanted to deal with how it was that, as a payoff, I believe, as a payoff or a concession for what actually happened in the invasion of Kuwait, as well as the first Gulf War, around alleged exposure to chemical weapons by Gulf War veterans and people that survived the Gulf War, that there was some sort of long range plan to entice or elicit a more prurient kind of entertainment for people that were veterans in exchange for their cooperation with other kinds of illicit activities connected to laundering pension benefits. And in conjunction with that was access to pornography as well as actual bonuses in the form of actual access to girls or maybe boys, but mostly girls or women. And over time, this has been demonstrated, especially in at least in the state of Texas. In the last two election cycles, where there have been alleged constitutional amendments, there have literally been alleged constitutional amendments or referendums that are basically about legitimizing this illicit process of trafficking women as some sort of sexual bonus for veterans. Now, what does this have to do with killing people in Afghanistan? What do you think they're playing? What do you think somebody that's a trained killer is going to want to do on their spare time if they are given access to resources like actual women engaging in sex acts for them to get their bonus while she needs to engage a sex act to be able to sleep indoors? What do you think they can get away with? What do you think entertains them? I'm serious. Because in the course of doing that, they're made available for leveraging or leaning or diversion from what they've got going on up here, as well as other things they have access to tangibly and intangibly, that gets redistributed to the police, gets distributed to the police, all this fancy gear, all this fancy tech, the armored vehicles, even the scooters, right? So, I'm just bringing this up because just so you know, this isn't about war crimes. This is about election interference, Mr. Morrison. This is about people intentionally hacking the Department of Elections database because they want to get free rides on girls based upon being able to leverage access to the Department of Elections database for access to the driver's licenses that one has in connection with their voter registration. And they don't just want girls in the US. They want girls they can get access to because some girls from those countries came to the US. So I'm just saying, speaking as one of those girls from the US that got joyrided around for a long time and that actually tried to report election interference before it escalated to accusations of war crimes, there's a very significant situation going on because what you're going to need to support your trial for war crimes is somebody in the United States to acknowledge the pension fraud. And then you're going to have to distinguish between the state legislature and the former National Security Council, who also participated in election activity that was allowed to be prosecuted while his private enterprises were allowed to be absorbed into the pension system and used for laundering in connection with the pension system. It's not actually that complicated. It would also make a difference that this man happened to be a theater commander in Afghanistan. And I think what we're concerned about in regards to him specifically is that he might have made some phone calls where he did what? Right? You mean acts of wire fraud? You mean hooking up girls to launder money for campaign supporters? You mean hooking up girls to launder money for campaign supporters while black ops were being called to finance acts of terrorism in other countries and or to create moments that were available for flipping in connection with extrajudicial murders of people in other countries that could acquire and accumulate metrics that were available for flipping in other contexts, including in connection with offsets to pension obligation? I'm just saying, it's not impossible to talk about this. I did it in 8 minutes and 7 seconds.